It's just after 7 p.m. and we are still waiting for board members Jane Coffey and Dave Anderson to come into the meeting and any other participants in the meeting. So expect to see them coming in shortly. Says, oh, there's Jane. Very good.
Okay.
Okay, hi, Jane.
Thank you, granddaughter.
I was just gonna say, go ahead.
Thank you.
You're welcome. We were sitting here for like 10 minutes.
You're doing a great job. Thank you.
Cost me money to have it for my assistant, you know, expensive sneakers, pocketbooks, things like that.
You waited all these years to get your own valet, didn't you?
I did.
Okay.
Okay.
So we're still waiting for the applicants to start showing up. I see there's 17 participants. And
Do we just have a letter on Ginley Road?
okay, so
They should be present on the.
Oh, okay.
okay. So I see we have number of applicants ready to go. I'm going to first case we're going to take is Ginley Road, which is Christine Goodrich. I see Christine Goodrich here, so I'm going to see if that works. Okay, so Christine's in. Christine, good evening. Can you hear us?
Hello, yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I'm sitting in my car because my electricity is out
Oh.
right now.
Okay.
And I have a lawyer. Is Ted Cannon on the call? Can you unmute him, please?
Hey, Ken. So Ed Cannon's on now, and
Thank
can
you.
come off mute. Is Christine Goodrich? Is there anybody else that you want on this call, on the this part of the meeting?
No, just Edward Cannon. Thank you.
Great. Hi, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Edward Cannon on behalf of the applicant, Christine Goodrich. And we're here just briefly tonight to respectfully ask to continue this till I believe it will be the November 18th meeting. And the reason why is, as the board well knows, variances are sort of tough to get. I think there's a possibility of an alternative form of relief that we would like to add to the application to give the board that option. But in order to do that, we have to amend the application, and it also require a new public notice. So we are going to do that, and so we just respectfully request to be able to continue to the November 18th meeting date, and we will be back and before you at that time.
Okay, Mr. Cannon, thank you. And I did talk to Amy Messier, our administrative secretary for the zoning board, and she explained that's what you were going to do this evening. So that's fine. Amy, do we need to do anything as far as a vote, or besides to continue until that date?
Nope, I would just do a vote to continue it till November 18th and roll call it.
Okay. Could I have a motion to continue until November 18th?
So moved.
Moved by Suzanne,
Second.
second by Jane. Any further discussion on continuing this so the applicant can make some changes? No further discussion. Roll call vote. Suzanne Murphy,
Murphy, aye.
Drew Delaney,
Aye.
Bob Fitzgerald,
Aye.
and I'm John Lee. Aye. Hey.
Jane Coffey.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Ann Coffey, yeah, Jane Coffey. Also aye.
Aye.
Great. Thank you very much, and we'll see you on November 18th. Thank you.
Okay, I hope your power comes back on, Christine.
Thank you. I hope so too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, the next case we're gonna do is because we're gonna lose Suzanne, we're gonna go over to case number 2032. This is 524 Elm Street, a variance request. So at this point, I'm going to let in the attorney for the applicant, which is Tom Brady. And I believe, I'll ask him who else he wants in on this.
Dave just texted me again. He can't do this. He has no service.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Brady, good evening. Can you take yourself off mute, Mr. Brady?
Hello?
Hey.
Hey, you are, Tom.
Yep, we can hear you.
Hello? I'm sorry. I'm not good with technology. I apologize.
You're doing fine. How are you this evening?
Start video. Okay. Hello?
Can you see us?
Sorry.
Okay.
Oh,
Who else you want in this meeting, Mr. Brady?
I'm trying to get my mic working, guys. I apologize.
You sound fine.
Oh, boy.
We can hear you.
I think his speakers aren't working.
I'm going to tell him to turn it up.
Oh, God.
This is your every nightmare.
Can you turn up your volume if you can, Mr. Brady, on your computer?
I don't think he hears us.
No, he doesn't.
He needs a granddaughter to help.
I just sent a.
He's not too far from you.
Oh, this is Drew. Drew's got it. Okay.
Oh.
My daughter's Boyden School learning right there. She's probably gonna be mad because I erased her math problem by doing it.
Tommy, can you hear us? Can you hear?
Oh, boy.
I'm not sure he saw your sign there.
Tom, can you hear us?
Oh, Drew, hold on.
Your speaker is off. Okay.
Tom, can you hear us?
Maybe
He's
tell
looking for the speaker.
him we can hear you, but you can't hear us.
They're always kidding me. Well, now I don't feel so badly not getting this because he's so bad.
I've run into this before.
You wrote that to me? Oh, that's all right.
See, this is when I call one of the kids in and say, help. Just as you did, Jane.
That's why I have my granddaughter. No, I took it off, didn't I? Did you hear me when I said that?
Yeah, we heard you.
Oh, you did, okay.
Is there anything we can do to help Tommy?
I don't think he can hear you, Suzanne.
Let's see if we get this again here.
Can't figure out.
Did you just lose Drew? I don't see him anymore.
Who else?
Lord.
This happened to me at school. He might be, if he goes down to like the mute button and clicks the up arrow, you can select a speaker.
I can't figure out. You can talk to him. Tommy! Oh, he can't hear me. You have to write it down.
Right, it's
Write it.
Mute, you can like select this type where you want it to come out. I
Uh-oh,
don't
now
know.
he's gone.
Oh, now he's gone.
Oh, he's back. You might have to write it down. Maybe. I don't know.
She'll write it down.
Oh, I don't know what's going on. Oh, hello guys, I'm sorry. I cannot hear you. Maybe, I can talk to you through the phone.
You can hear us or no?
I'm trying another computer, so
Oh, okay.
calling Phil. All right, bye. Bye.
Drew Delaney, hold up the sign again for Tom, please. And there's-
You finish writing what you're writing.
Okay.
Look what we've come to.
Okay, what we're gonna do is, we're not gonna
Can
close.
you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
I cannot hear you for some reason. And I apologize. I'm gonna
Can you
mute
see us? Oh, he can't hear me.
and call my daughter to see if she can
Okay.
instruct me how to get through. All right, so hold on a second.
Yeah. That's it. Suzanne, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Here, will this help?
Yeah, I can't really read it.
Oh, no, it's gotta be. Okay.
John, maybe if you want to move to Main Street, and then we can bring Tommy back.
Okay, that's what we'll do, and
Yeah.
so, okay. So, we're gonna keep him on, we're gonna go to, the Main Street one, so I'm gonna let in Phil Mackey now. Sorry, everybody.
I'm stepping down.
This is a special permit. Amy, we're okay with just 4 members for a special permit, I believe.
Yeah, that's totally fine.
Well, I'm gonna advise Mr. Mackey that we have 4 members, and if he wants to proceed. Mr. Mackey, good evening, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, wonderful. Who else do you want me to let in on this meeting?
There should be Sean Murphy also in attendance.
Okay, I've got Sean Murphy, I'm letting him in, anybody else?
I believe it's just the two of us this evening, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, I see a Sarah Olson and Elisa Tierney and a Harry Clow. Kristen Clark. Does anybody know, are those with your case?
They might be a butters, but they're not with our team.
So, you know what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna let them in and find out what case they're here for.
Sure.
Okay, just click them in, and we should have Murphy, Sean Murphy in also.
Sean Murphy present, if you can hear me.
We can hear you, Sean, thank you. Okay, the others are coming in now too, so.
Lisa Tierney's here. Can you hear me?
Yes, Lisa, what case are you here for this evening?
The one that Tom's not able to connect up and talk to, so I'll take it over myself. That's 524 Elm Road, Walpole, looking for a garage.
Right, and so what we're gonna do is we're going to continue with the other case, and we're gonna get back to you after we have this other case.
And that's fine, so long as Tom is eventually able to join, but if he's not, then I would like to represent myself before the evening is over. Perhaps you could give him like the phone numbers where he could call in, like that are on the web, like the 408-638-0968, and there's a few others.
We're all at our homes, but we will make this work with you and Mr. Brady. We also have on Sarah Olson and Harry Clow. Sarah Olson, good evening. Can you hear us? Take yourself.
I hear you. This is Harry.
Okay, Harry.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, Harry Cloud, what case are you here for this evening?
I'm just listening to the meeting as the RTM. There were a few cases I was asked to listen in on.
Okay, very good. And Sarah Olson, what case are you here for?
Just being nosy.
Sounds good. We welcome participants in this. So thank you for being there. I just wanted to make sure that if you were a butters, that I'd recognize you as a butters for the case. Okay, so right now we're going to take this is for case number 2030 979 Main Street, special permit request under section 9.4C of the zoning bylaws to allow the enlargement or extension of an existing non-conforming building. And this is for the old Bay Bank or Bank of America property on Main Street. At this point, I'll turn it over to Attorney Phil Mackey. Mr. Mackey, good evening.
Good evening. Yes, I noticed. So my question is going to be is, I know he's not on the call, but is your alternate still available to potentially mull it in if we go forward tonight?
So this is a special permit, and I was going to advise you that we only have 4 members right now, but we could proceed with a 4-member board if you want. That's at your request. I can't say anything about whether Mr. Anderson would be able to mull in this hearing, but that's that's really up to you.
Well, I guess in the interests of trying to keep things moving, I'd like to present my case, knowing that I need a unanimous vote. If you would be willing to give me a sense of whether I should continue to give you more evidence at the end or not, I would appreciate that. Because clearly my client, if he is forced to wait 2 years, goes bankrupt.
I don't think that's the case that we're dealing with at this point. So my suggestion is you've got us here. Why don't we proceed with your part of the hearing tonight, and you can decide after you present and we have a discussion whether you want to continue or if you want to proceed to just wrap it up tonight, or we could wrap it up at another meeting. It's your choice.
That sounds fine by me, Mr. Chairman. So with that, I would like to begin my presentation.
Okay.
I actually got to get Tom Brady's phone number off. I gave him a call telling him you could hear him earlier. So we provided an A&R plan with the application. I hope you all have hard copies of it. If not, I'm prepared to try and share my screen, but I suspect that might be a disaster. I'd like to draw your attention to the A&R plan. If anyone doesn't have it, please let me know. Because that really is the genesis of why we're here tonight. A month ago, Bob asked a very legitimate question. You have an undersized lot. I was the one who actually brought it up. Why don't you need a special permit? At the time, I believed that we were an accepted lot To be honest, at the hearing, I didn't have all of my notes, and it had been 6 months since I had filed. But as it turns out, having talked with the building commissioner, it's probably best that I didn't give you my rationale because things change, quite literally. And so basically what happened is this lot started off life as a conforming 5,000 plus square foot lot that needed no relief. The building totally conformed. In 2001, the town basically created the municipal parking lot that is behind this block of buildings right off of Main Street in front of the condos. And you can see it on the A&R plan. And specifically, you can see 1,250 square feet was removed from this lot, which again would have made it conforming. And as far as anyone can tell, they basically just drew a line at the end of the sidewalk and said, this is going to be the town's, and the bank gets to keep what's the remainder of it. And I would just draw your attention to the rest of the plan. You can see as you go through the parking lot that effectively that's what the town did all the way across. So until you get to the very corner with what used to be TT's, which wasn't affected by any takings, pretty much 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 out of 7 lots, I think, if I'm correct, counting correctly, all became non-conforming. In 2001, I think, and I still believe, they would have been treated as accepted lots, basically under the premise that the public taking shouldn't be held against the folks who lost their property. But that's neither here nor there. In 2007, 2008, when the bylaw was rewritten, section 9.2F was added. And that basically says flat out that if a lot becomes non-conforming by way of a public taking or non-compliant, it will be treated as a non-conforming lot. And talking with the building commissioner, because the question really was, were we under 9.5B? And he said, no, you're actually under 9.4C. I think it's somewhat semantic. They basically are relying on both the language of the bylaw and a Chatham case that basically states if you have a building that's on an undersized lot, the building is still treated as non-conforming. Given both of those things, we could probably rewrite section 9 to about 3 lines long and alleviate a lot of confusion, but we're not here to do that. So that's a long way of saying Bob was correct in that relief was needed. The zoning enforcement officer directed me to file under 9.4C. I don't believe any other relief is required, but I went back to past practice and did add any other relief that the zoning board feels necessary should we go down that road. But again, we have gone over the zoning table, gone over the plan ad nauseum with the building inspector, and believe we have filed correctly under 9.4C. So as far as the actual criteria, the main finding the board has to make is whether or not the changes to the building as requested will result in a substantially more detrimental effect to the neighborhood than the existing building. That's a quote out of the zoning bylaw. I'm not being hyperbolic there. And we would respectfully submit that the building as proposed is not more detrimental at all to the neighborhood. Excuse me, we went over a discussion of the building and the architect. Nothing has changed since last month. I'm happy to go over those, as will do Mr. Murphy, but I'm going to focus on the criteria of the special permit, and certainly we can revisit any architectural plans or what have you as well. So again, the building is unchanged from what we presented a month ago. Actually, I guess it's about a month and a half. It was in August. My apologies. We would respectfully submit that we have condominiums directly across the parking lot, which are 50 feet high, And we all know the G building, and we can argue if it stands for Jan Domenica or Glenwood, but that is as close to a cube, I think, has been built. And I probably am misquoting the geometrical shape, but nonetheless, that's a 5-story slab-sided building with no architectural features. Directly across Glenwood Avenue, we have an apartment building, which I would say actually is considerably more attractive, but even higher at 57.8 feet, with both more mass and scale than we were presenting. So we would, again, submit to the board that the building as proposed by the applicant is smaller than basically the 2 comparable buildings that are in the immediate neighborhood, and will not have any detrimental effect if you allow the change to the building. Just to run through the special criteria, permit criteria under section 2.2, at the risk of repeating myself, but it is a new hearing, talking about the first one, section A, talks about criteria and standards set forth elsewhere in the bylaw. Again, section 9.4C has the criteria of substantial detriment, and I think we've addressed that. B is vehicular and pedestrian traffic, and we would submit as conditioned in the last zoning board decision, 8 one-bedroom units with lease provisions requiring or mandating only 1 vehicle per will not be adverse to the immediate neighborhood. Again, as far as residents, employees, customers, and visitors, the conditions in the previously granted special permit, and certainly, while I don't think it would be necessary, we'd be happy to have the same ones put forth in this as well, so they never get missed. But again, as conditioned, we believe that the special permit curtails the number of people living there and that will be able to visit, etc. Talking about dimensional regulations in section D, that is why we're here. The lot is deficient, and so we need relief, not a variance, but a special permit to alter and change the building. As far as danger and nuisance, I'm lumping E and F together. The plans have been reviewed by the Board of Health and the Fire Department. There were no new comments there, other than the Fire Department did discuss the fire code. Mr. Murphy certainly can speak to this, but it is our intention basically to gut the building, bring the whole thing up to standard. I don't really think those are zoning conditions, but if they wanted to be noted, that would be fine. So everything that Deputy Chief Barry requested, we don't have any issues with. And as discussed at the last hearing, we're not against bike racks, but that's going to be a little bit more tenant driven than just putting it on the plan, assuming that the relief is granted. We've already discussed the characters of the immediate neighborhood. And last but not least is the purpose of the zoning bylaw. And section 4.2B2, that's the definition of the CBD, states that the purpose of this district is to provide for center business activity, accessible to pedestrian travel, and provide for municipal and cultural activities, as well as a mix of commercial and residential uses. And again, just to reiterate, the first floor is still intended to be a restaurant, and the second and third floors are expected to be residential units. So again, it hasn't changed. Commercial completely on the first floor, and I think we're under the 3.5 ratio for the 8 units above. Respectfully, Mr. Chairman, I think it's probably more beneficial for me to answer questions, although I will turn it over to Sean briefly. We had not a lot of new material to present, but certainly if I skipped over anything or somebody wants me to go more in depth, would be happy to. But Sean, if you'd chime in just briefly.
Yeah, Phil, thanks. No, not much more to say. I just gained an understanding of the history of that back parking lot myself between these meetings with some of those players that you spoke about, and it sounded like it was a good thing for the town to clean up what was otherwise a pretty rundown, raggedy space back there. So that's all I had.
Hey, Mr. Mackey, thank you for your presentation. So I do have a question. It more has to do with where this lot 21 was cut off of lot 22, it sounds like.
Yes.
This 1,250 square feet. That is now owned by the town of Walpole, is that correct?
That is correct.
So there will be no parking at all for this, these eight apartments that are being put up here. They are going to rely on town parking, is that correct?
Yes and no. It is town parking, but as discussed before, when the bank deeded, basically deeded 21 and 25, which you can see is a much bigger piece of the back parking lot to the town, it reserved an easement, a permanent easement over 8 spots. So we're in a somewhat odd position that the bank building, now Mr. Murphy's building, has the rights for 8 spots. It controls, it's allowed to post signage per the terms of the easement with the town, but it is in the municipal lot.
Okay, do you have a copy of that easement that you can provide the zoning board?
Yes.
Okay, is it included in this package of information that I'm looking at?
It has not been, no.
Okay. I think that would be helpful. I don't know, Bob, what's your thoughts on that? You're the one that caught this originally.
No, I think it would be good just to, confirm the legal rights that they have to the parking spaces, and so I think we could reference it in the decision.
Okay. Without seeing it, I'm not fully comfortable of even having the decision yet. I thought this was going to be straightforward until that issue came up, because really what we'd be doing is there'd be parking that is town-owned parking that the owner of the building has an easement to, but what does that actually mean? And that's why I'd like to see the actual easement. But what do you? I mean.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair, and I think the bylaw is clear that you can satisfy your zoning parking requirements at an off-site location. But I think it's fair to just ask the applicant to demonstrate the rights that they have by virtue of the easement. So that's, yeah. And if you'd like to see it, in case I don't know what it says, so there could be other conditions in there that we're not aware of, but so I think it's appropriate to look at it. Yeah.
Do you think we could? I'm trying to see if you think we could close the hearing, vote on it tonight, and make that a condition, or are we better off keeping it open and seeing the actual easement agreement? Bob?
I think it's okay as long as we have the representation of the applicant that they have the rights that they claim they have, and we're just asking for something to be added to the file that demonstrates that. So I think I'm comfortable, but I'd like to hear what other board members think about that.
Okay, Jane?
No, that sounds reasonable to me.
Okay. Drew, what's your thoughts? Drew DeLeo?
Yeah, I think that's okay, Jordan.
Okay. Okay.
If this were a normal hearing, I could hand them to you.
Yeah.
I can have them on Amy's desk first thing in the morning.
No, I'm comfortable with that. Bob, this whole issue with the issue of a enlargement or extension of a non-conforming, are you okay with what's been presented?
Yeah, I think that's right. I think the issue that we discussed before was the non-conformity and whether additional relief was required beyond the relief that we granted previously for the reduction in parking. And it sounded like subsequent to that hearing, the discussion with the building commissioner was had, and there was agreement that additional relief was required. And I think this sections that have been referenced are the right ones. And I agree with the standard being not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood. So on that issue, this is not I'm obviously not an architect, and I'm not going to design the project, but I seem to recall at the last hearing, it just mentioned that this was a building design that was maybe adopted from somewhere in Boston or somewhere. And I was just curious if any consideration had been given to whether the upper portion of the building could be more sort of compatible with the lower side. In other words, it looks like kind of a very modern cap on top of a very kind of classic New England brick bottom. And I'm not suggesting that any changes need to be made. I'm just curious if that was considered as part of the design process, and if so, whether this was chosen for one reason or another. Just curious about that.
Yeah, no, certainly considered. One of the things the architect and myself had looked at were, cities in Europe that are, certainly extremely old, with extremely old buildings, and they often run into the situation where they want to expand the building, and a lot of the architect over there, Paris, Vienna, Berlin, you'll see this type of design where they'll take a traditional building like this and add, a non-traditional, in your words, a cap to it. So that was kind of the motivation behind it. There are certainly some in Boston as well that you'll see, and again, an older city, older buildings, older architecture. So it's kind of, a meld of old and new world. Okay. But, I would say the final architectural plans are certainly not, these are presentation plans, depending on kind of these hearings and the result of these hearings and the conclusion. So,
like I said, I'm not really, I was just more curious than anything. I mean, I know that there's a lot of eclectic kind of sort of architectural designs out there, but I think some of the other buildings, like the one Mr. Mackey referenced, that went up, and included some, architectural features that kind of, for example, played off of the old town hall, and I don't know. I just thought that.
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying. I think, if you look at the Walpole Town Library, they sort of kind of try to do that mix with a little bit of, traditional versus modern in their design.
Yep. Okay, and then just one other question I had was, I can't recall if we addressed it in the prior hearing, but what's the anticipated size of the restaurant in terms of the number of seats? Do you have a sense of that, or is it too early to?
Yeah, too early. It's going to be about 2,600, 2,650 range. So I would imagine that's about 120-ish seats. And that ballpark, we haven't got down to that detail yet. The layout of the actual restaurant. This is just, presentation material.
Right. And I didn't believe that there's no parking requirement for that use under the bylaw, but have you given any thought to how you might accommodate?
Yeah, so correct.
Whether they're parking or valet or something. I don't know how you.
Yeah, no, you're correct. There's no parking requirement for ground floor commercial space. There are in that parking lot that we have the 8 spaces in, are I think total 90 spaces back there, very much unused 90 spaces. So this building will have an elevator with a ground level entrance on that back side of the building.
Okay, so the thought is that the public parking behind and maybe across.
Yeah, I think
would be
realistically, I think most would park behind and go through that back side of the building and up, whether it's by the stairs or the elevator. And we certainly will, try to let people know that there is that parking lot back there. I think it kind of gets lost in the shuffle sometimes.
Okay, thanks. I don't have any other questions.
Okay, any other board members, Jane, Drew, any other questions or comments or things that you want as conditions? Because we're going to get to conditions next.
No, I think I'm pretty well satisfied. It sounds like things are appropriate, and I certainly wish the applicant good luck.
Drew?
Oh, is there an intention on adding any exterior lighting, either on Glenwood or for the people parking on the rear of the building? The residents?
Drew, I kind of just heard half of that.
Is there any, I don't see it on your renditions, but was there any plan for exterior lighting, either on Glenwood or at the rear of the building for parking?
Yeah, no, that it will be basically for all intents and purposes, a new building with the appropriate lighting, the appropriate signage, all appropriate fire code, building code. Certainly something, we're more than open to. We could do some wall sconces over the windows along Glenwood to highlight that sidewalk. I think that would be a nice architectural feature. And then in addition, the entrance to the back will certainly be well lit for patrons coming in and residents coming in.
That sounds great.
Okay, Drew, I think one of the conditions we could put is that the lighting meets is it called night skies? What is that called, Drew?
I think it'd just be under, adequate standards for any ADA or safety, whatever the building commissioner would recommend. But I saw it as a recommendation for the Board of Health that they also kind of noted that adequate lighting be provided for, any residents or people entering or exiting the restaurant too.
Okay, that's easy enough. We can just put that as a condition, and it sounds like, Mr. Murphy, you plan on doing that anyways.
Yeah, I think it will be well lit, tastefully done, well lit. We certainly are going to want the building to be attractive to people coming into it.
Okay, so what I have for conditions this evening, Mr. Mackey, the conditions from the previous hearing, but it's 8 one-bedroom units. That would be a condition. We just talked about adequate lighting. Drew Delaney, what's it actually called so that there's not too much light, too much spillover? What is that called?
Just be permitting, dark skies or.
I think they call it daylighting.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, dark sky lighting is a term, and we're actually purposely not doing that because one of the conditions of dark skies is it doesn't spill over the property line. And if you want us to help out light up Glenwood, we by definition have to spill over the property line.
Okay, I got it. So, and the only other condition we saw, it was a request from the Board of Health, and that would be to have a bike rack. And I know you already said something about that would be tenant driven, but we could also put that in right now that a 8 bicycle rack on the property someplace. We won't specify where, but you do have room out back, I see, where you could put it. Mr. Murphy, what's your thoughts?
We're not opposed to that.
Okay. Any other conditions? Okay. So Amy, do you have those conditions, same as the previous one with the number of bedrooms and referencing the plan already submitted, and a copy of the easement showing that, and this is showing that the applicant does have an easement to 8 parking spaces in the municipal lot.
Okay.
Okay. And Mr. Mackey, you said you can provide that?
Yes,
Okay.
I do. I have the deeds.
Okay. Bob, anything else?
No, I think that covers it.
Okay. And the just call it, we call it an 8 unit bicycle rack. You know, there's going to be eight apartments, and they can only have 1 car. That was one of the conditions we already referenced in the last one. Okay.
We didn't add it in this one, or just keep it from?
No, all the same ones, and Mr. Mackey made the point, all the same ones from the previous
Okay.
decision. That way it's consistent. If somebody pulls one in the future, they know that there's consistency.
Okay.
John, did the applicant mention anything about the trash or recycling pickup for the property?
No.
Oh, I think that's gonna have to be resolved with the limited site review. There are designated spaces for dumpsters for each building in there, and I'm not quite sure how that works. But there is a designated dumpster space. I think there's 6 dumpsters back there. And I think it's a conversation we need to have with the, Phil, what department would that be?
We'll be going through limited site plan with the building department, and that should address all of the individual department comments, the fire code, the health code, and he won't issue the site plan approval without it. As we're not actually constructing any new footprint, we're able to do that with the building department rather than the planning board, but Commissioner Yanovich, I think, has a pretty good handle on what needs to happen. And like I said, he will be consulting the health director, the town engineer, conservation agent, et cetera, before he issues that permit.
Okay, I think that's a good point, Drew, but it sounds like that's covered in the limited site, the site plan review that will be done with the building inspector.
And we may want to just include a condition that the applicant complies with the limited site plan review process, so that we cover whatever is required through that process becomes part of the site.
Okay, Amy, would you add that? Okay.
Sorry, sure, yeah.
Okay, good. So, does anybody have any questions on the conditions we just discussed? Mr. Mackey, good with those?
I'm fine with those, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so that being said, zoning board members, any final questions? Okay, Mr. Mackey, do you want to close this hearing?
Yes, please.
Okay, so could I have a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Okay, moved by Jane,
Second.
second by Bob, you just beat him. Second by Bob. Any further discussion on closing the hearing? Okay, this is just a vote to close the hearing. Bob Fitzgerald.
Aye.
Jane Coffey.
Aye.
Drew Delaney.
Aye.
I'm John Lee. Aye. Okay, so that's the hearing is closed. Mr. Mackey, do you want to proceed with the? We could vote on it tonight, or and I think you probably have a feeling that at least things went pretty well for you.
I think so. I would like to vote, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. That's fine. Okay. So this is to approve approve the special permit under section 9.4C of the zoning bylaws to allow the enlargement and extension of the existing non-conforming building with the conditions that we've already discussed. Amy, you good with the conditions? Okay. Amy, do you want to just read us I think there's 5 conditions? You're on mute. Yeah.
Sorry. Okay, adequate lighting, 8 unit, 1 bedrooms. I'm sorry, 8 1-bedroom units. 8 bicycle rack placed on the property. Copy of the easement showing the applicant has 8 parking spaces within the municipal lot. Project to be done per the plan submitted at the hearing. All the other same conditions in the previous decision. And there is one more condition. What's the last one?
Compliance with the limited site plan review process.
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that's what we have before us. This is could I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Bob,
Second.
second by Jane. Okay, roll call vote. Bob Fitzgerald,
Aye.
Jane Coffey,
Aye.
Drew Delaney,
Aye.
and I'm John Lee, aye. Okay, Mr. Murphy, Mr. Mackey, good luck with your project.
Thank you very much, guys and ladies. Appreciate it.
Have a good night.
Thank you, you too.
Okay, let's see if we can bring in Tom Brady, Lisa Tierney, Suzanne Murphy, you're back with us. Lisa.
Lisa's here.
Hi, Lisa. I'm trying to bring in Tom Brady right now. There we go. Good evening, Mr. Brady.
Hear me.
Can hear you.
Mr. Lee? Oh, my God.
Like a Pink Floyd album.
I'm glad hold on.
To have a little feedback, I think you have 2 microphones, or a microphone right next to your speaker.
Oh. I'm glad I'm providing.
The other thing, if other board members would turn off go to mute, that might help a little bit.
Is that better? Is that better?
We're still getting the echo feedback, Mr. Brady.
Okay. Can you still hear me? No. It appears now. How's that? All right. I apologize.
Tom, are you dialed in as well on a telephone by chance?
I'm dialed in.
Okay, so why don't we try to get you on the handset? I'm going to see if I can bring you in to talk on the telephone line rather than the computer. That way your sound will be a little bit more isolated, okay?
Okay.
Okay, Tom. Got your phone line here.
Is that better?
Way better.
Oh, yay. Well, Chairman Lee, ladies and gentlemen of the board, I apologize. Can you all hear me now?
Yes.
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 Okay, well, I'm glad I provided some comedic assistance to the board. So, my name is Tom Brady. I'm an attorney and I represent Miss Lisa Tierney, who resides at 524 Elm Road in Walpole, Mass. That's Assessor's Map 24, Lot 91. And she is constructing an attached garage onto her home, existing home, on a lot that is non-conforming. She's in the rural zone, which requires 40,000 square feet, and her lot has 16,949 as shown on the plan I submitted with the application. The proposed garage, which is on the plan, has a setback of 5.8 feet at its closest point, and in the rural zone, a 25-foot setback is required pursuant to section 6.b. So we are requesting a variance to allow a 5.8-foot setback where 25 feet is required, and a variance from section 6.b1 of the Town of Walpole zoning bylaws. We have submitted with the application all of the abutting neighbors and in the neighborhood have consented and are fully in favor of granting Ms. Tierney this variance. There are two letters that are executed by the immediate abutting landowners who are in full support of the board granting this variance. I got to tell you that this is probably the first time I've had a unanimous consent from all of the abutting neighbors in requesting that the board approve the request for this variance. As you know, to create and to grant a variance, the board has to meet the criteria of Massachusetts general law and the case law. In order for the board to grant this variance, they have to have certain findings of facts for the variance. And as I submitted with my application, I provided the board with a request for findings of fact regarding variance application. And the following circumstances relating to the soil conditions, shape, topography specifically affect the land and or structure. As I have said, the shape of this lot is narrower and doesn't conform with the zoning than the abutting lots, but it does specifically affect the structure and the granting of this easement so that my client can build her garage on the property. And as stated prior and submitted with the application, all of the abutting neighbors are in full consensus that the board should grant this variance. It will not only enhance the neighborhood and its visual impact, but will enhance the value of the homes and the surrounding neighborhood. And that is also stated within the abutters letters. A literal enforcement of the provisions of this bylaw would involve substantial hardship. And again, as stated and as placed in my findings of fact, it would be a substantial hardship to the neighborhood because they all want this variance to be granted to enhance the value of their homes as well as the value of the applicant's home. And the desirable relief can be granted and it will not detriment the public good. And again, I must say just one more time, unanimous consent by all of the neighbors. So for the foregoing reasons, I request that the board grant the variance to Ms. Tierney so that she can build her attached garage to her home. And as stated in some of the abutters letters, Ms. Tierney has elderly parents that live with her, and this will assist in her care during the winter months in getting them in and out of the house. So for those reasons, I request that the board grant this variance. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Attorney Brady. One thing, I'm not sure if earlier in the meeting, if I read the legal notice, so I'm gonna do that right now. This is case number 20-32 for 524 Elm Street, variance request under section 9.4A of the zoning bylaw to allow a 20 by 32 attached garage with a side yard setback of 5.8 feet where 25-foot side yard setback is required. So I forget whether we did that earlier, but that's just going to cover us either way. Okay, Mr. Brady has made his presentation. Board members, do you have any questions or comments at this time? Okay, Suzanne Murphy, go ahead.
Tommy, I need some percentages. I need to know what's the size of the existing dwelling right now, please. Square footage and size.
Square footage. On the plan, it does show it. The plan doesn't. Lisa, are you there, Miss Turney? Maybe you can add to what the total square footage of your house is. I'll look at the tax assessment and see what it says here.
Square feet, and it was 1,600 square feet, and I just put on another bedroom up. So what I'm doing is I've taken a small 3-bedroom ranch and I've turned it into a 2-bedroom ranch so that it would be wheelchair accessible. So they have larger rooms but less rooms.
And Susan,
So the
was the
dimensions
chance of
are not
1,600
really
on that?
sure. I'd have to look it up.
That's like important.
Okay, I'll look it up while we're talking.
And then Tommy, do you have the square footage for the addition?
well, it is 20 by 32, so that equals.
Yeah, but you got farmers porches, you got other stuff too.
Well, no, this is just for the farmers porches were allowed. They've already been built. The only thing I need a variance for is the garage, which is 20 by 32, so that's 640 square feet.
So
what was it? 642?
640 square feet.
640. So what are you piecemealing this out? You already added some on and now you're adding more on?
Well, this is the only one we needed a variance for. We presented it to the building inspector.
When was the farmer's porch put on?
Lisa, you can answer that.
Yes, I'm currently going through renovations, so the farmer's porch is the structurally it's there, but it's not complete.
So we can add that onto our square footage then if it's not on. It's not approved.
No, it isn't.
No, it's all approved. It doesn't need approval.
I have a permit.
The farmer's porches.
Yes, I have a permit for the construction that's going on. So what I'm looking for tonight is just the variance for the garage, nothing else.
Right, board members, I said that, and as we know, a variance is a very high level to get approved. I went and looked at it. So it was a smaller house with a garage, and it's been renovated. In fact, the renovation is well underway. And as you look at the plan, most of the house has been, it's not finished, but it's there. The only thing is that the garage, there's no garage built on the side property. It's waiting for this hearing tonight. So what's going on is existing house and renovation, which they didn't need zoning board approval for, but they do need zoning board approval because going so close to the sideline. So really, for me, at this point, it's a question of what is the hardship that is here that the zoning board is going to try to give relief for. And Attorney Brady outlined the points, and now I really think that's the question that we have to say is that enough to meet the burden of a variance? Bob, what's your thoughts on this?
Bob, you're on mute.
I guess if Attorney Brady could have just addressed that question again, I think what I heard was that the position was that it would be a detriment to the neighborhood not to have a garage there because it might enhance, you know, I guess the presence of this house without a garage somehow depresses property values in the area. But I think the standard really is this: what would be the hardship to the applicant if we were not to grant this variance?
Well, the hardship is that, you know, her parents who are elderly and in wheelchairs would not be able to get in and out of her house. The hardship also would be that all of the surrounding neighbors unanimously approve of this. So, what's that?
Nothing. Sorry.
I mean, so it is a hardship for her if this was denied.
Okay, I'm not suggesting that it isn't. I wanted to hear specifically what those hardships were to the applicant as opposed to the neighborhood more generally. That's all.
Right. So I provided that to take care of her family and her elderly parents. And again, there's full support, and you can read all of the abutters, unanimous support. I've never had a case like this where a neighbor hasn't come out against it, and everyone has unanimously supported this.
The only other question I had is similar to the prior case. You know, there are, if I understood you correctly, that the existing building is legally non-conforming, and you know, the plan is to enlarge an existing, a legally non-conforming building, and whether that requires, in addition to the variance, a special permit.
Right. I went over that section 9 of your bylaws, and I think Attorney Mackey talked about this earlier. Should be rewritten with a new case law, because section 9, and this is the first way I went about it, but then I talked to your building inspector, said that if there is an extension of a pre-existing non-conforming building, which this is, then you would need a special permit. So I initially went in with a special permit and talked to the building inspector, and he said, no, you need a variance. And I'm not sure if he quite said that section of the bylaw was incorrect at this point and needed to be changed. But there is a contradiction. What's that, Amy?
So he had come out to the property and he was able to, off the top of his head, recite all sorts of laws and measurements, and he went back and he double checked them, and so we definitely would not have gotten the permit if we needed a special permit.
I'm like so confused.
Right, that's with the farmer's porch, and basically the garage is completely different in that it goes into the setback, and that's why he required a variance instead of a special permit, and I should just go by way of a variance. And that was confirmed with the zoning board secretary before I made application. And again, the farmer's porches that are shown on this plans have already been approved by the building inspector, and the permits have been granted. So the only thing we're here for is a variance to the side yard on the garage.
Can I just clarify something? I spoke to the building inspector regarding this. Well, I spoke to Jim Crowley. A better understanding. What my understanding was that they needed to go for a variance because that side of the yard where the proposed garage is currently conforming to that setback, even though it's a non-conforming lot. And because they're going within that setback, even on a non-conforming lot, they're creating more non-conformity on that side of the
That's
property.
correct. Yeah, and that is correct, Amy.
All right.
And as Deputy Commissioner said, when he came out to view the property and take measurements, he said, I have hardship on top of hardship on top of hardship on top of hardship. And he saw no issues with this. You know, it was just the formality of having to go through it because I missed something by 6 feet. So.
Well, no, it's
6 feet.
It's not a formality, and that's why we're here with the zoning board on a Wednesday night. and it's not 6 feet. It is, it is closer to 19 point.
Right, but then there's a different thing that was grandfathered in that I could have used as a measurement, and he said in that usage, I missed it by 6 feet. And I think that's the frontage property, but I don't remember all the particulars because he was very technical in describing this way, that way, or the other way.
So, the variance is a very high standard, and what I see is I see that an addition's been made to the house, renovations have been done, the farmers' porches have been added. All that was done without necessary anything from the zoning board. But the hardship, it's I'm not seeing it right now, and it's nice that the neighbors are supportive, but we also have to look at what is the zoning bylaw. The zoning bylaw requires 25 feet. What makes, you know, this impossible to do any other way? We just had a case within the past month where it didn't work out for the applicant. So that's what I'm looking at right now. Dane Coffey, if you want to say something.
Yes, I'm just wondering, first of all, when all of the changes were made to the house, going from a 3-bedroom to a 2-bedroom to make handicap, we had the same situation actually in my mother's home not long ago, a few years back. Was there any consideration given at the time that you went ahead and I realized that if you didn't need approval from the zoning board, that you, just by right, you could make these changes? But did you at any time consider that you were going to be needing a garage before you went ahead and got permission to change the bedroom number and add on these 2 farmers' porches, if you will? Because while I can understand, and believe me, I can understand the issue of a handicapped parent. However, I don't necessarily think that it's absolutely a necessity that you have a garage in order to have access. In my folks' situation, there was a garage there, which we did not use to access. We had a handicap ramp that went up to one of the doorways. So while I totally sympathize with the situation that you're in. However, as John Lee has said, this is a very, very high bar. And it's a 19 feet you're asking us to sort of close our eyes to. And I think that we have a responsibility to, throughout the town, to try and hold the bar high on these variances. And while I think your neighbors are absolutely wonderful to all want to support you in this, and I think that's wonderful. That, however, does not constitute a reason for us to consider when we're looking at a variance. I'm thinking that perhaps before you went ahead with these farmers' porches and whatnot, might you then have considered, I might want to put on a garage. So that's my only thought about it. I feel like John feels that this is not meeting the expectation for me at this point.
Well,
I believe that the applicant had, these plans were drawn, which included the garage. And so it was all done at once that this would be completed. And again, in the board's history, maybe it's just not in the last month, but you have granted variances that are very similar to this for an individual. And I believe that the surrounding neighborhood is what matters or should matter to the board. And with unanimous consent to have this done to prevent my client from doing this would be egregious. It's just my feeling. I understand that the bar is high. I completely understand that. But I know that the board wants to help individuals within the town family and about taking care of family. This is where I grew up, and this is where your board members grew up. So if someone wanted to appeal your decision, let them do that. But I don't think, I'm not going to have an appeal because all of the neighbors, all of the abutters, and if there is an abutter out there on Zoom that is against that, please allow them to talk. But I do not believe that there will be an abutter. And again, I think for the common good of the neighborhood and for this applicant, that this variance should be granted. And your board does have the authority to grant the variance.
If I might, that just raises another issue, Tom, and that is, you said that the garage was already written into the plans, which leads me to believe that the horse came before the cart. If all of the changes were made and the farmer's porch was approved and the garage was quote unquote in the plans, there's a problem for me right there, because having it in the plans does not make it necessarily something that's going to happen. And as the applicant said, if she was led to believe that this was a formality, it is really far, far from a formality.
Well, maybe I misspoke with the word.
Excuse me, if I could continue. And I do think, and while I do appreciate the situation you're in, it is not mandatory that you have a garage in order to be able to have handicapped parents live in your home. And I hear Tom Brady, and I know it's a family town and all of that, but into the bylaws, it does not say that we make an exception if everybody in the neighborhood agrees with it. What it says is if it's complementary to the neighborhood as opposed to something that would stand out. So while I appreciate it, I still feel that all of the neighbors wanting this does not rise to the level of a variance, because we could have something else happen, 2 or 3 areas in town where the very same argument, well, the neighbors they all agree. Well, the neighbors aren't going to live there all forever and ever. And what you do in one place will be held accountable to you when you want to look at it again. So, I don't mean to be difficult. I appreciate it, but it's not doing it for me.
One other point I would like to make, and that is not just helping my elderly parents, which I thought would be an appeal, but just not having a garage is also a hardship. I park on my front lawn. Like when it snows out, I have nowhere to put my car. I think that's a hardship.
I thought you just had a garage.
It was not usable. It was under my house and it had one of those steep driveways. So I slid into the wall. It was narrow and steep and damaged my car. So I never used it.
Well, I don't have a garage at my home either. Unfortunately, I converted it into a family room. So, and I don't have room on either side. So I'm in the same.
Well, I think if we make it aesthetically pleasing, then down the road, even if all my neighbors move and new ones come in, the new neighbors will also have the same feeling. We're not talking about 1 or 2 people that thought this was a good idea. And also, as I mentioned, we had the deputy commissioner and the commissioner come to the house, and I mean, it was unanimous that everybody I've spoken to thinks that this is a hardship situation.
And also, Mrs. Coffey, the board has granted similar variances in the past, so there is a precedent. And with that precedent and with those similar variances, I believe you may have had disgruntled neighbors, but it was still granted. In this case, there is no disgruntled neighbors. And, anybody coming into the neighborhood, if a house is sold, is going to see the neighborhood, and, they can choose not to purchase the house at that point if they don't like, because a smaller house has been enhanced by a garage. So,
Well, I'm not aware I'm not aware, I've been on the board for a couple of terms, so I'm not aware of a variance of a 19 feet difference between what's in the zoning and what.
But what would be the difference between a variance of 19 feet versus a variance of 5 feet? It is still a variance and still requires the same standard. And again, your board has granted, or the board, maybe not your board, has granted variances maybe where it was 1 feet. What's the difference? And again, an attorney once told me, the law is whatever the judge says it is on any given day. And the Zoning Board of Appeals is the judge. So with no disgruntled neighbors, I believe that you can grant this variance for the benefit of my client.
Yeah, it's not only for that, but it's also for the town and the bylaws. Your client knew that this property had setbacks of, or should have known that there were setbacks of 25 feet. And the way this has been designed, it, you know, puts the garage well into the setback, and I'm just I just don't see, this is something that the applicant wants, and we're trying to figure out how we can do it, but you know, we have to uphold the bylaw, and that's where we're at.
But I understand that, Chairman Lee, but then you should just come across with a law that there should be absolutely no variances in perpetuity, because no one can meet the standard of a variance. No one. And I believe that the board knows that. I believe town council would inform you of that. And I believe just the case law supports that. So we understand, and as I said, the board in the past has granted variances, whatever that variance is. And I bet that the variances were granted without someone showing the hardship that's required by the case law. My client is in a difficult position. I don't believe she knew that she would need a variance when she hired architects to prepare it. And at this point, you know, she wants to get her parents in and out of the cold on a snowstorm, to get them in and out of the house in a wheelchair. And that's quite a hardship. And I believe that your board can do that.
Okay, Suzanne, go ahead.
Tommy, did you add a second floor onto this ranch? Or did she add a second floor onto this ranch?
I believe there's not to the main house. Lisa, is that correct? Not to the main house, but on the garage, there is a floor above the garage. Is that correct, Lisa?
I put a bedroom over a bedroom so that my parents could have a bedroom downstairs and I could have a bedroom upstairs.
Is that in the main house, Lisa?
It's half of the main house, yes.
Okay. So she did add that.
The garage is going to be 2 stories now?
No, just one.
Okay, so there's no room over the garage. Is that correct, Lisa?
That's correct.
Are there stairs in the ranch going up?
Yes.
So there is a second story on the ranch?
Yes.
This is like pulling teeth tonight. I can't get my square footage. I can't get anything. So there is a second floor on this ranch?
Yes.
And how many bedrooms total are there now on the ranch?
2.
And we're not adding any more?
None.
Okay, and can I finally get my square footage? Because now we have to include the farmer's porches.
I'm sorry, I didn't bring that to the plate because I didn't realize that it was applicable to getting a variance for the garage. So when we started conversing, I went off and I looked at, I was looking for the documents that we did to get the permit. I don't know if it says the square footage on them. I'd be happy to share them with you, though. Yeah, the plans that were submitted, but I don't know the square footage.
Susan, on the plan, the proposed farmer's porch is 6 by 22.
That's the only ones I have are the 2 farmer's porches on my plan, which is here. And there's no measurements on the existing building, which is now I don't even know if this is the real existing building on this plan or the new existing building. So,
Well, no, it's pretty clear that the existing building has hashes through it. It says existing building 1 story. And then it
but she
shows the
just told me
proposed
there's 2
addition.
stories.
Okay,
I didn't hear you, I'm sorry, Susan.
I thought she just told me there were 2 stories on the existing building.
No, I believe she told you that she added a bedroom above the bedroom on the existing building. Is that correct, Lisa, or was it in the front?
But
Where it
that's-
says 8 by 20 addition?
I put a bedroom over a bedroom, so there is a second floor.
Yeah.
Now,
But again, I don't see how that has anything to do, Susan, maybe you can explain it to me, with getting a variance for proposed garage.
Well, for
That's
one
all
thing,
we
when
were
we
required to get by the building inspector.
I'm good.
so Attorney Brady, I understand your point that really, and what we're here for is the variance on the garage. That's what.
Right, that's it.
and just, may I ask one question? I thought that as long as I had a variance, I mean, as long as I had a hardship and the property looked, you know, what the looks didn't change for detrimental reasons, and nobody was, not in favor of it, that, isn't that the point of having a variance? Because of a hardship?
So there's 3 things that you have to meet. 1, that there has to be a hardship, and it's not a self-imposed hardship, and it's about property, not people. So we're gonna take people out of the equation. If you had a lot that, you had a giant rock on the other side of your property, and there was no way that you could put a garage over there, and this was the only place it could go, that would be the hardship. People are not part of the hardship equation, so we're gonna take people out of that. So that's 1. The other part is that it cannot be detrimental to the neighborhood. And I think you've made the point that your neighbors are in favor of this. But it's also coming within 5 feet of the property line where everybody else is held to the standard of 25 feet. But the neighbor said that they're in favor of it, and that carries a huge amount of weight because this discussion would probably be a lot shorter if your neighbors were coming out against it. And the third thing is that it is not to try to subvert or get around the town's zoning. And what we're seeing here is there's 25-foot required, but why can't you build to 25 feet? And what it's coming down to is because you want a garage. Well, there's a lot of things that might need that, but I'm not seeing why you must have this garage in this location. So.
Oh, okay, maybe we failed to point that out. There is no other place to put the garage. I would put the garage on anywhere else, but there is no other place to put it. That's the hardship.
Okay. Drew Delaney, Bob, any comments or questions? Jane?
Just a couple of thoughts. I think maybe in deference to the applicant, because the building commissioner, went out to the property and at least in his mind, he found that there to be sufficient hardship for the grant of a variance. Maybe perhaps we could hear from the building commissioner as to that, because they, in the first instance, took a look and they seemed to be persuaded. And I do think ultimately it comes down to a question of the hardship and whether the hardship here is different in kind than the type that have been rejected in the past. Our most recent case where we had someone build a foundation before even coming for a variance and having plenty of places that they appeared to be able to put that garage in compliance with the zoning, and it was for the parking of cars and some landscaping equipment. In contrast here, in order to have it does appear from the looks at the plan, that if you're going to have a functioning garage somewhere on the lot, you know, there's insufficient space to the left of the building, and it sort of defeats the purpose, I think, to require the garage to go sort of adjacent to the pool in the back. So I think there might be some justification there for the location being where it is, and that given how narrow the lot is, that there really isn't another place to put it. But I think, you know, ultimately whether the hardship that we're hearing, which I think is very sincere, and I feel for the applicant and having a way of getting her handicapped parents in and out of the house in a safe way. You know, to me, that's a hardship. The standard is financial or otherwise, and I think otherwise kind of encompasses whatever types of hardship that we might consider as relevant. So anyway, I guess those are my thoughts, and I think maybe that if the board was inclined to hear from the building commissioner directly based on their site visit, you know, I think that would be, I would be in favor of that if that was the board's inclination.
Okay, Drew, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think it'd be beneficial to hear from the building commissioner, because I looking at the plot plan, I see some difficulties with that, and I think it would be good to hear from a expert hand like that.
Okay, so Mr. Brady, it sounds like board members are thinking that you might want to continue this hearing and get some more information, particularly from the building commissioner, and then come back and, you know, present that information. Is that something that you'd like to do?
Yes, I think that would be a good idea.
Okay. So at this point, I think we're going to ask you if, so you want to continue the hearing, get some more information, and then we can, you know, hear that. So Amy, what's the next available date that we'd have for a zoning board meeting, non-40B?
On 40B, the next one is November 18th.
Okay, Mr. Brady, would you want to continue until November 18th?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I would like to continue the hearing until November 18th.
Okay, I think that's best for everybody involved. I think if I'm not feeling comfortable with this, I'll just tell you right now. I think other board members have expressed that too. So if you can get us into that comfort zone, it'll be good for everybody.
All right.
Okay, good. So are there any neighbors out there that want to comment on that? I'm looking at my list of panelists, and there's a Caitlin McNichols. I'm going to let Caitlin McNichols in. I don't know who that is.
I have no comment, thank you.
Okay, well, are you here for Elm Road?
No, the Bank of America.
Okay, we've already
Or the old Bank of America.
Yep, we already finished that part of it. But obviously, public hearing today. If there's anybody else, I don't see anybody else on our list of panelists or attendees. Okay, could I have a motion from a board member to continue until November 18th at 7 p.m.?
So moved.
Moved by Second. Second by Jane. Any further discussion? Okay, no further discussion. All those in favor? Roll call vote. Bob Fitzgerald.
Aye.
Jane Coffey.
Aye.
Suzanne Murphy.
Murphy, aye.
Drew Delaney.
Aye.
John Lee, aye. Okay, Mr. Brady and Ms. Tierney, we will hear from you on November 18th.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a nice night.
Night. Okay, board members, we just got some minutes. I haven't had time to review those, so I'm going to suggest that we hold off on unless somebody wants to vote on them but I think we should hold off until everybody has a chance to review the minutes. Does anybody have anything else for the board? And remember, we're still on the air. Okay.
I have nothing further.
Could I have a motion to adjourn then?
So moved.
Moved by Suzanne.
Second.
Second by Jane. Any further discussion? Roll call vote to adjourn. Bob Fitzgerald.
Aye.
Jane Coffey.
Aye.
Dan Murphy.
Murphy, aye.
Lou Delaney.
Aye.
I'm John Lee. We're adjourned. Aye. Okay, Amy, thank you. Mike Donovan, thank you. And we are done for this evening. Take care, everybody.
Okay, good
Thanks,
night.
guys.